All right, so today we're going to talk about education and communication for health promotion. All right, so communication takes many forms. Obviously, there's teaching, caring, encouraging. Those are the forms that we see in nursing. And we use communication in all forms of health promotion activity, right? Whether it's we're teaching somebody how to perform a self-cath, we are offering some caring words to someone who's discouraged. We're encouraging someone to become more independent in their daily living. So communication is defined as the process of conveying ideas, thoughts, opinions, or facts from one another to another. So there's 6-element communication model. There's message, encoder, sensory channel, decoder, feedback, and context. So I have this cool little Prezi that I found on the 6 elements. Hold on one second. So the 6 essential elements of communication. Here are all the communication process model, right? All right, so the 6 essential elements, you have verbal messages, nonverbal messages, perception, channel, feedback, and context. So verbal messages are spoken words used in communication. Nonverbal messages are communications expressed without words. So touching, facial expressions, lack of communication. Perception. This is the process of giving meaning to information learned through the 5 senses. So your 5 senses: touch, see, feel, taste, and hear. So you might hear tone. You might see a facial expression. You might, I don't know about taste, really don't know how that would work. But those are the 5 senses. So three major factors are going to influence your perception, okay? Physical differences, past experiences, and your present situation. Channel, the means by which a message is transmitted. Examples like written word, spoken word, illustrations, text, email, touch, and smell. Noise. Noise in the channel negatively affect communications because it distracts a person from speaking or listening effectively. Noise is anything that interferes with the listener's ability to receive a message. So examples of noise are sound, emotions, distractions, or internal noise. Feedback. Oops, sorry. Other people's responses to a message that let the communicator know how he or she is doing. It consists of verbal and nonverbal messages that tell communicators how they are being perceived. The setting and place that surround a message. That's the context. So there's positive feedback, negative feedback, and self-feedback. So positive feedback, you might see smiles, clapping, laughter. Negative feedback, you might see frowns, silence, unkind remarks, or a questioning look. And then self-feedback will come from within yourself, the message you give yourself as you pay attention to your own behavior. Context provides the background that helps reveal the message's real meaning. So it's affected by setting, involving time, place, and occasion, and people. The people in the setting influence what is or what is not said, right? So a good example is saying, get out of town. And you're sitting with friends, you're on a couch, you're telling someone to get out of town, versus someone says, get out of town, and it's 2 people holding, a bank loot that they just robbed. Like, that term has different meanings in different contexts. Okay. Oops, sorry. All right, so the message is the content to be relayed. Encoder is the person who sends the message, right? And you have your sensory channel. The decoder is the person who receives the message, the feedback, and then the context. So we talked about verbal and nonverbal. So 90% of all communication is nonverbal. So verbal communication is complicated by faulty message formation, encoding, channel selection, reception, decoding, and feedback. Precise content is also affected by meaning of words, Definitions vary in different parts of the country and worlds, and definitions change over time.
Hello everybody. Today we will be talking about the communication process. It's a fairly simple, basic component process. You have the sender, one who uses verbal and nonverbal means to initiate communication. They have a message, the verbal or nonverbal expression of a sender's purpose. And there's a receiver, the target of the sender's communication. They can be a listener, an observer, or both. But what's wrong with this model? We have a sender, a message, and a receiver. The problem is we don't often communicate in such a unidirectional manner, a one-way version of communication. A more complete picture looks something like this. We have a sender, but they pick up the dual role of receiver as well, and we'll get back to that in a second. So as a sender, they send their message, as in the more simple version of the model, and they send it to a receiver. But you'll notice here that the receiver has also picked up a secondary role. They are a sender as well. What do they send? They send feedback. Feedback is the response of the receiver to the sender's message, which tells the sender how the message was received. Gets back to the sender, as we said. So, to illustrate this a little bit, imagine the sender receiver says hello, the message hello, to the receiver sender. Receiver sender can provide feedback, a smile, a verbal answer of hello as well, and the sender receiver knows that their original hello message was received correctly. Now, it's not always that simple, and it doesn't always work as smoothly. There's more to the process. The sender needs to encode their message. The sender-receiver encodes their message, and the receiver-sender encodes their feedback. When I choose to say hello or smile, I need to encode it in such a way that it is very likely it will be received correctly. Also, though, on the receiver end, the sender-receiver and the receiver-sender as well, they need to be able to code that message correctly as well. So you may be asking, what is encoding and decoding? Encoding is the sender's selection of the means of expression. How do I shape that smile? What kind of tone do I put into my hello? Right, those are the ways I encode. Decoding is how the receiver gives meaning to the message through their own perception. Now, decoding can be pretty simple, but some things can get in the way. They can get in the way of encoding and decoding, but decoding is the one that can be hit the hardest. What am I talking about here? I'm talking about interference. Interference is anything that disrupts or prevents a receiver's interpretation of a sender's message as the sender intended it. So maybe I'm not feeling very well today. My smile doesn't quite form the way I want it to. Maybe I unintentionally color my hello with what the receiver decodes as sarcasm, so that they think I'm not glad to see them. They'll feed back with maybe a puzzled expression, right? And I'll get that message and understand that feedback message and understand that I maybe need to reiterate my message to ensure proper communication. Again, it gets even a little more complicated if we add in the idea of context. Context brings in even more potential interference. Context is the physical, social, psychological, and time elements in which the communication takes place. How can this affect the message? Well, if a person has just had a bad day and I come in and I say hello, they might not be in the best place physically, psychologically, or socially to receive my message in the way I intended. That is the basic communication process, folks. For our test that will be coming up after this, you will be expected to be able to create this or recreate this model on the test and define the terms as they've been used in this presentation. So you might want to take a second to go back through, see each of the steps of the model and how it evolves towards the most complete communication process that I've delivered to you today. And you're going to want to be able to relate this to a real-world situation, much like I did with the smile and the hello. We're going to be working with a project later in the quarter where you'll do just that. So that's it for the communication model for today. Thank you for your time, and have a good one.